there! Thanks for stopping by for this episode of the Industrial Cyber Weekly Roundup. I'm Bailey, and I'll be running you through the news and developments of this past week in the industrial cybersecurity world. So let's get into it. Ransomware attacks on critical infrastructure have been rapidly increasing and pose a greater threat to OT assets and control systems. In recent years, the quantity and range of ransomware infections targeting industrial organizations has significantly increased, exemplified by cases such as ECANS and the Colonial Pipeline attacks. Such attacks have led to operational disruptions by targeting ICS mechanisms across organizations, vendors, and subsidiaries from various industries. There are multiple reasons for this increase in activity, including escalating geopolitical tensions, introduction of Lockbit Builder, and the continued growth of the ransomware as a service model. Some ransomware operators realized that going after critical systems, such as hospitals, would bring more media attention to the victims and the attention of law enforcement. Additionally, cyber adversaries are becoming more sophisticated and are actively seeking to exploit vulnerabilities in ICS to achieve their objectives. Industrial Cyber reached out to cybersecurity experts to discuss how the threat and prevalence of ransomware have affected the approach to ICS cybersecurity and what types of measures these environments have put in place to defend themselves. You can see what the experts had to say in the full story over on industrialcyber.co. The NIST has published a discussion draft that identifies the potential functions, categories, and subcategories of the NIST Cybersecurity Framework, or CSF 2.0 core. It covers cybersecurity outcomes across 6 functions, 21 categories, and 112 subcategories, and is intended to increase transparency of the update process and promote discussion to generate concrete suggestions for improving the framework. Feedback on the discussion draft may be submitted to the agency at any time, and it, quote, will inform the complete NIST CSF 2.0 draft anticipated to be released for public comment this summer. The NIST also released a preliminary draft soliciting comments from stakeholders in the public and private sectors to bring awareness to the challenges involved in migrating to post-quantum cryptography. Through the National Cybersecurity Center of Excellence, the project focuses on initiating the development of practices to ease migration from the current set of public key cryptographic algorithms to replacement algorithms that are resistant to quantum computer-based attacks. The U.S. CISA published a security advisory rated as CVSS 10.0 severity, identifying the presence of an OS command injection vulnerability in ENEA ME RTU equipment. The RTU, or Remote Terminal Unit, works as a data interface between the remote device and the control center. Versions of ENEA ME RTU firmware prior to 3.36 are vulnerable to operating system command injection, which could allow an attacker to remotely execute arbitrary code. DHS commented on the self-assessment of the Cyber Safety Review Board of its own inaugural proceedings released last year. Alejandro N. Mayorkas, Secretary of Homeland Security, said that the board's recommendation in its review of inaugural proceedings provided a roadmap for ensuring that the board endures as a sustainable, replicable, and professional model for public-private collaboration. He added that codifying the board into law will guarantee that the board remains a permanent fixture in the cybersecurity ecosystem and continues its work to strengthen the cybersecurity of critical infrastructure owners and operators, no matter their size, location, or sector. The U.S. GAO found that since the department's acquisition cybersecurity instruction was issued, none of the 7 DHS programs that underwent subsequent acquisitions completed the required cybersecurity risk recommendation memorandum. The GAO recommends that the Secretary of Homeland Security clarify which major acquisition programs are required to have completed CRRM before acquisition decision events, and when exemptions apply. Not-for-profit organization MITRE announced the release of its Attack version 13, which will provide analytics pseudocode, mobile-specific data sources, key website updates, ICS asset refactoring, and more cloud and Linux coverage. The biggest changes in Attack version 13 are the addition of detailed detection guidance to some techniques in Attack for Enterprise, mobile data sources, and 2 new types of changelogs to help identify more precisely what has changed in Attack. MITRE also released its MITRE Caldera for OT tool that allows security teams to run automated adversary emulation exercises targeted against OT environments. Built on the MITRE Attack for ICS framework, MITRE Caldera for OT emulates the attack path and attacker capabilities that are defined either through Attack for ICS or other custom-built plugins, thereby enabling organizations to assess their cyber risk analysis and adversarial emulation tools to secure critical infrastructure environments. MITRE Caldera for OT provides OT-focused plugins to enhance red or blue team training, product testing and evaluation, or even measurement against acceptance testing milestones. A group of OT cybersecurity companies unveiled plans for Ethos, or Emerging Threat Open Sharing, an open-source, vendor-agnostic technology platform for sharing anonymous early warning threat information across industries with peers and governments. The OT-centric open-source platform is a cooperative development in the OT security industry with the goal of sharing data to investigate early threat indicators and discover new and novel attacks. Founding Ethos community members include 1898 & Co., ABS Group, Clarity, Dragos, Forescout, NetRise, Network Perception, Nozomi Networks, Schneider Electric, Tenable, and Waterfall Security. Google's threat analysis group identified that it continues to disrupt campaigns from multiple Russian government-backed attackers who were focused on the war in Ukraine in the first quarter of the year. The Google report also threw light on the Frozen Barons, aka Sandworm Group, which targets the energy sector and continues to hack and leak operations. Russian government-backed phishing campaigns targeted users in the Ukraine the most, with the country accounting for over 60% of observed Russian targeting during the period. Semantic researchers disclosed that the North Korean-linked X-Trader software supply chain attack affected more organizations beyond 3CX, including 2 critical infrastructure organizations in the energy sector, one in the US and the other in Europe. 2 other organizations involved in financial trading were also breached. As a result of the breach, 3XC's software was compromised, with many customers inadvertently downloading malicious versions of the company's voice and video calling software called Desktop App. Bitdefender researchers identified the modernization of Charming Kitten's TTPs, including a new, previously unseen malware called Bella Ciao. The malware has been tailored to suit individual targets and exhibits a higher level of complexity, evidenced by a unique communication approach with its command and control infrastructure. The team has identified multiple victims in the US and Europe, but also in Turkey and India. Researchers at GuidePoint Research and Intelligence Team, or GRIT, disclosed a 27% increase in public ransomware victims in the first quarter of this year compared to the first quarter of last year, and a 25% increase from the last quarter of last year. During the quarter, GRIT identified that the most active ransomware threat actors are Lockbit, Clop, AlphaV, Royal, and BeyondLian. Nozomi Networks announced its new Elite Cyber Defenders program, with Accenture Security, IBM Security, and Mandiant, now part of Google Cloud, as initial participants. The program enables incident response organizations to combine Nozomi's AI-powered OT and IoT monitoring and detection technologies with the skills and services of these incident response organizations to provide the best tools and services for the critical infrastructure sector. Now, before I sign off this time, I want to mention the upcoming Industrial Cyber webinar on May 4th at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. TP Research recently conducted a survey of OT cybersecurity professionals delving into industrial secure remote access and uncovering some surprising trends. On May 4th, you can join Jonathan Gordon, industry analyst and strategic advisor for TP Research, and Kevin Kumpf, chief OT strategist for Ciolo, as they discuss the survey findings and how the industry at large is using ISRA to safely enable OT ICS connectivity. So that is it for this week's Industrial Cyber Weekly Roundup. Be sure to head over to industrialcyber.co for new articles, features, resources, and industry news. And I look forward to seeing you again here next week.